Welcome to this tutorial on defining and using functions in Python. For the text version of this tutorial, click on the link in the description below. And for more information, visit datascienceunlimited.tech. A function is a set of code that is assigned to a function that can be executed when calling the function. This allows us to make our code more readable and save time by being able to call the same code multiple times. The function can have parameters, which are variables passed to the function. The function has a unique name and has the same naming restrictions as variables in Python. The function's name is not allowed to start with a number. The first character must either be a letter or an underscore character. No non-alphanumeric characters except the underscore character are allowed in naming the function. The names chosen for the function are case sensitive. You are also not allowed to use the so-called reserved words in Python. Refer to my previous video on variables and expressions in Python for a full recap of the naming restrictions. To define a function in Python, you use the keyword def. This keyword notifies Python that a function is being defined. Defined is where the keyword def comes from. Followed by the keyword def is the unique name of the function. After the name is brackets and a colon. Inside the brackets is where you put the names of the parameters or arguments that you can pass to the function when calling the function. All code that is indented after the defining of the function are part of the function, and if the code is unindented, it is not part of the function anymore. It is important to check the indentation of your code. A function can also return values with the keyword return at the end of the function. An important note is that once the return statement is activated, the function does not continue executing code after the return statement. A function must be defined before it can be executed in Python. This is unlike some other programming languages whereby the function can be defined later in the code. This is a very basic function that takes no parameters and will print hello world to the screen when the function is called. We can put all kinds of code in the function and make the function do complex tasks. Later, you will learn interesting things we can do with functions. Here is an example of a function that just returns the variable called value, which is a constant of 5. This is obviously not a very functional piece of code, but it demonstrates the use of the return function. Remember that once the return statement is reached, the function does not continue executing code after the return statement. So if we add lines of code after the return statement, they would never execute. If the return statement was, however, in an if statement, it will be executed based on a condition. If this condition does not hold true, the code will continue either until the end of the function or until another return statement is reached. And yes, we can have multiple return statements within the function. Once the first return statement is reached, the function stops executing. A function can take parameters when calling the function. These are arguments that are passed to the function and can be called upon within the function. As in this example, we can multiply the two inputs with each other. These parameters are variables that can be accessed within the function, and we can use these variables within the function to do something. Only when we call the function, the code enclosed in the defined function will execute. You can call a function with the name of the function, followed by parentheses. Inside the parentheses can be parameters if the function was defined with parameters. If the function has no parameters, then the function is called with the name of the function and parentheses. For example, the function name and then parentheses. This function refers to our function in a previous example and will print hello world on the screen. We can pass parameters to a function. The parameters must be in the same order as defined in the function. Not only must the parameters be in the exact same order as we had defined in the function, but also the correct amount of parameters as we defined. Too few parameters and running the code will produce an error. Too many parameters and running the code will also produce an error. In our example, num1 is before num2. We can use multiply numbers function as follows. Calling the function and then inside the parentheses give the parameters. There are two ways of passing parameters as demonstrated in this example. One is to give the parameter name and set it equal to the value you want to parse. Second is to use the values of the parameters. This will return the value of 5 multiplied by 4, which is 20. We can put the returned value into a variable to retrieve it at a later stage. Variables may not be accessible throughout the whole program. Where in the program and how the variables are declared in the program influences the scope of the variable. A variable declared inside a function is not necessarily accessible outside of the function. Likewise, a variable declared outside of a function might not be accessible inside the function. For a recap on assigning a variable, refer to my previous video on variables and expressions. When we define a function and do not want to add any code to the body of the function, we can use the pass keyword. This will let the program know to pass the function without executing any code. If you are wondering when we would use the keyword pass, it is when we want to quickly add a piece of code but not yet implement the piece of code. I will now demonstrate how to define and use a function in Python. We start by defining a function that adds two values that are passed as parameters. The sum of the two values will be returned by the function. Now let us define a function that we will use later. We use the pass keyword to allow the program to continue. We will add code to the body of the function a bit later. We can now use our add numbers function to print out the sum of two values of say 3 and 5 to the screen. We create a variable sum to store the output of our function. Equals and then the name of our function. In brackets we can put the values 3 and 5 that we want to sum. To get the answer printed to the terminal, we need to use the print function and print out our variable sum. We save and run the program in the terminal. As usual, we make sure that we are in the correct directory where our .py Python script is located. We type python3, a space, and the name of a file, including the .py extension. We hit enter, and as you can see, our sum of 3 plus 5 is 8. Finally, let us add functionality to our hello world function. All we will do is add a print statement that prints the words hello world to the terminal. To call this extremely basic function, we just use the name of our function followed by parentheses. We save and run the program again. Now you can see both our functions executed successfully. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next tutorial. Smash that like button if you found the content insightful and subscribe for more content just like this. And click the bell button to get notifications of new videos to stay up to date. See you in the next video.